My participation in Dump Site 41 began with a call out from Amy Grenier's Facebook site. I had been keeping track through the internet and thought the farmers in Elmville community had things under control. What government office would allow a landfill on an aquifer? I wrote a letter on behalf of my company, 7th Generation Resource Management, Inc., to the CMC protesting the application to take water. When the release went out that the approvals were issued, I knew something was up. Something was not right. The government was not doing their due diligence concerning the protection of our water. The approvals passed with no consideration to the years of resistance from the surrounding communities and no consultation process for surrounding First Nations. The government's obligation to protect our water was given away to permits with morally wrong intentions. I emailed Amy and gathered 6 of our people to come walking in Elmville. Elder Gloria King is a water belt carrier and performed the water ceremonies at the spring. I knew there was more we had to do, so I started leaving messages on Facebook and to stir people into participating. I frequented the locations around the proposed site with friends and colleagues to show them the surrounding marshes, streams, rivers that encompass the proposed landfill site. Bosley First Nation Chief and Council were investigating and requested more information from the ministry and the county, and the chief later came on board with Chief and Council later come on board with a BCR, which is a band council resolution, and the chief wrote a letter also not to be arresting his women and children and young people. At 5 a.m. in the morning, a conversation happened between Shelley and I after the walk, and it was sparked by my slow brewing coffee pot. And we can't remember which one of us said it, but someone said, I bet coffees would taste good in front of those gates. And another one of us come back and said, yeah, I bet you we could camp in that hayfield. So then we called Amy, who linked us to Ann and John and Art and Lois and Steve Ogden. And we got permission to go onto the site, or onto their hayfield. So Shelley and I plotted and planned, and we talked Pauline and Vicky and Lita to coming on board for a weekend of protest camping with the private permission for the hayfield. The call was put out for firekeepers, and John Hawk was the first to arrive. Elder Leon King had lit the sacred fire Friday, and we followed up with a full moon ceremony performed by Shelley and joined by local farmers. The next day I was sitting in a meeting in Owen Sound and worried about the camp and how they would come through such rainfall and wind that day. I expected to come back, see everybody packed up and gone home. I knew we had committed people when I returned to find soggy ground, flattened tents, and the fire still blazing. Oh, I'm nervous. I was so proud to see such commitment and honored to be part of this group. The group that took the call of duty serious, the duty to protect our water, our Mother's Earth blood. Oh, I'm losing it. Okay. Shelley Assens, Vicky Monague, Pauline Monague, Alita Elson, and myself, Elizabeth Brass Elson, were known as the Anishinaabe Quaig. Our camp was a peaceful protest camp called Site 41. Many people came and introduced themselves and shared their heartbreaking stories on how this landfill would affect their way of life. The weekend was emotional and hard on all of us. These people fought and won, and fought and lost, and depleted their energies fighting a corrupt system. Our hearts went out to them. As natives, we fight this kind of injustice every day in our territories, in our waters, in our forests, and in the courtrooms. We have little trust in the government or the system. I joined Johnny for pre-dawn coffee on Sunday morning, and he told me the fires wanted to stay lit. We were all thinking the same thoughts. How could we pack up and go home when we knew we had the power to stop it? I was told by my brother Chuck, choose my battles wisely and do not go gentle. I kept these words close to my thoughts the whole time I was out at Dump Site 41. As natives, we cannot finish something setting the wrong precedents for our future generations. We committed ourselves to continue on this protest. The adrenaline rush started and continued for many, many days. People came day and night to sing and drum, smoke pipes, perform ceremonies. And there was a never-ending presence of supporters who offered whatever they could to help. The bond was struck the moment we set foot on the land, the moment we offered our tobacco to the sacred fire, the moment we realized, as one, we do have a voice. Oh. Times were hard in the beginning with the winds that came ripping across the empty fields, pulling tent pegs, blowing tarps and canopies across the land. We were repairing and rebuilding every day, and in time we had shelters that were able to withstand winds and rain. Our dedicated youth kept the fires at night. The young women and men sang and drummed the nights away, and one early morning, with temperatures dipping down below zero, I woke to eight youth cuddling around a sacred fire with their backs and heads covered with pure white frost. Yes, dedicated they were. I was amazed at their staying awake and supporting one another through the cold nights and long days, keeping our sacred fire burning. The sacred fire was now protected with a lodge, and it was likely the first lodge ever built with non-native and native participation and a backhoe. We called it a teaching lodge, and our youth shared our teachings on water and sacred fires. And Kate Harries was the first neighbor to arrive and bring her tent and to camp with us. Harold Broker was the first to join our circle. We had circles quite often to clear the air, set direction, and having these talking circles kept the bond that we needed to continue in this fight. When a camp circle was called, it was called to resolve a problem, set direction, air views and opinions, establish rules, and sometimes just to catch up and share. The circles before the blockade were some of the best experiences in the camp. The innocence, the sharing, the teaching, the bonds, the initial thinking sessions were also motivating and inspiring. We stood together proud, positive, shoulder to shoulder with our intentions as one. We smudged and sent prayers to the Creator by offering tobacco in our sacred fire. The fire was special and powerful, and we shared our medicines and our teachings with those who came to learn. Ceremonies range from lifting pipes to drumming, socials, and many ceremonies performed by our elders and traditional people from across the country. We welcome most anyone to our camp. There was a few who showed up to start trouble or were on vacation from a local institution. We never had any problems with people coming to camp as long as they were sober, peaceful, and there to help save the water. The sacred fire was a welcoming sight in the morning, and some of my best memories of those early days when the sun popped over the ridge in the early morning haze. Okay. I was an early riser, and being a grandmother, I was able to tend the fire after sunrise, and this allowed the firekeepers more rest. The full moon was another time when I was able to keep the fire, which gave youth a night out together and me some time to build a relationship with the sacred fire. I was learning about this relationship we have with the fire and was humbled and honored to this chance to sit and be as one. Day after day passed, and nothing much was happening with stopping the dump. We taught, we learned, we sang, we drummed, we prayed, and we all had fun building relationships and enjoying the hayfield living, but it was not the place we needed to be. Other than educating the masses, we were having no effect on the county. And by this time, they had stepped up construction on the next door on the landfill. The farmers organized a tractor rally, and the road was soon plugged with tractors, and construction was stopped until the farmers were intimidated by the police. The construction company was working overtime. An email had circulated from the county saying their garbage would be moving in a few short weeks. A few days went by watching truck after truck bringing gravel and stockpiling their supplies. The activity felt threatening, and a circle was called for the camp. We all discussed how we should proceed, and my plan was to shut them down. Many were not in favor of blockading roads, and I went against almost everybody in the circle and called for a roadblock. The camp was now divided. Those who wished to participate were woke by Johnny drumming and singing in the pre-dawn hours, and the plan was to make a circle of cedar, and the woman would have a water ceremony on the road. We knew our men and young firekeepers would be targeted first, and they were asked to stay back and sing and drum with James on his big drum. We thought by this time the police and the government would be wondering how to deal with us. We were peaceful. We had local community support. We were on private property. We were not your normal scenario. Art and Lois had given us permission to camp in their hayfield, and we were friendly with police and law-abiding to this point. So adding a new ingredient, our medicines and ceremony in the middle of the road, would buy us more time to get some media and support. Our cedar was often in a circle in the middle of the road in front of the main gates. We lit the smudge bowl, which had sage and protection medicine and water in the center of the circle. This prompted the trucks to turn around and drive around the block to gate 2. Vicki and I proceeded up to gate 2 with the smudge bowl and sat in lawn chairs in the middle of the road. The traffic was now stopped in both directions. The camp was alive with drumming and singing, and everything finally felt right. The real fight had begun. The Aboriginal relations teams were mediating between industry, county, and Anishinaabe-Quayag. Being compliant was not changing anything, and I knew the only way to slow industry down and get government and media attention was to hit them in the pocketbook. I had been to a county monitoring meeting at the township office a week before. When I slammed my fist on the podium and said, "We're shutting you down," I meant it. I knew there was no other way to proceed. Ina Woods asked in despair, "Well, who is going to stop this landfill?" Johnny Huck stood up and said, "Aye, well, we all began to stand, and stand we did." Another drink. The little smudge bowl in the middle of the road caused a lot of controversy. It was the beginning of the real fight, and the beginning of people being aware of how unjust our system really is towards our nation. The police did their duty to confuse and intimidate people on the roadsides, saying that we had a big fire and that they could not come down the road for their own protection. This did stop many people from participating, but those who knew the territory knew they could gain access through the Purnell farm and come to Dump Site 41 camp. Many people walked in from the side roads to see our smudge bowl, and trucks lined up and were amazed at our little fire and came and joined in our protest. During the blockade, I was running amok in camp. Some youth wanted to come on the road and participate, and some were scared of the outcome would be warriors. Some adults were right against any kind of blockade and thought it was wrong to be going against the law and were worried we were no longer peaceful and left the camp. Others were concerned on how we were using our medicines and ceremony and left the camp. A circle was called in the middle of the blockade to decide if the roadblock should be continued. It was a very intense circle with many options put forth, and most people wanted to remove the blockade. I, on the other hand, could not back down and said I'd be out there by myself if I had to. There was a few others who stood up with me to continue the blockade, and the circle was called to a close with hugs, tears, and well wishing each other the best. Our whole nation was affected by what we were doing here, and turning back was not an option. I did not change my mind and proceeded with what needed to be done. Stop Dump Site 41 was the mission, and the like-minded protesters held block gates day after day, night after night, and some until arrested. Shelters were built at each gate, and everyone picked their own location for protest. Gate 1 was busy. It was the main gate across from the camp.
Yeah? Sorry, this is the smudge bowl. Just so you know, that little bowl in the center there.
That was their fire.
Yeah.
This was the main communication center for people from Gate 1 and kept everyone informed on police activities and camp updates. It was the gate that had the most attendance, and interviews were always done there. Most of the reporters and camera crews by then were asked to stay out of the camp by this time. Gate 2 was the gate the trucks and employees would line up day after day waiting for police to negotiate access. Nothing ever changed. The answer was still always no. We never received anything we ever requested. A few phone calls went out to McGinty's office requesting he return our phone call. Another request was to Harper's office asking this matter to be put into federal hands. Also, there was a letter delivered to the Queen of England on our behalf, and we never heard back from that castle either. The gate had many protesters throughout the day. I'd get the coffee delivered every morning and a bagel, and that was really nice. This was the gate where I spent most of my nights while on the blockade. Jen, Kate, and Elaine spent nights in the cars also, whenever they could. Bob and Claire provided a tent, and the local handyman built a bridge over to a private field at Gate 2, which was the Boker's horseradish field. Excuse me. We knew the Gate 2 was most vulnerable for entry and guarded it well. There was a night we had low numbers at the gates, and we put mannequins in lounge chairs and looked like we were sleeping. Gate 3 had action, as we always allowed the security to enter in the mornings and the evenings. We also allowed the research team to continue collecting their data on the upward gradients. The TP was erected in Roy and Bernice's Nehu's wheat field across from the gate. Danny, John, Jason, Marvin, and Bruce kept this gate most nights, and we called it the Ritchie Gate, because most of the Ritchie family occupied this gate in the day. The Morgan family came and watched the gate in the evening. They liked the sunsets over the teepee. I slept in my truck at this gate a few times and felt uneasy. There was a lot of traffic on the roads, and a lot of times you'd wake up and there'd be new people in their cars sleeping. Gate 4 was established at Concession 3 in Dawson Side Road when the construction crew snuck into the site from the back concession. We closed access to this to keep the construction crew out from all directions. We had this gate closed only for a few weeks because the rains prevented them from entering through the undeveloped land. During my time at the gates, I was astonished by the gatekeepers. We had quite a dedicated crew who laughed, played, cried, shared, and gave their all to the cause without any questions. We were like-minded, and we were all there to stop the dump, no matter what the consequence. I went from gate to gate visiting and catching up, listening to ideas, and planning creative ways to survive. I would leave for meetings and be called back to the camp sometimes, mostly to deal with police and any other incidents sometimes we dealt with on the phone. We had flags flying over the gates, bales of hay were brought in by some farmers when the numbers were low to help keep them closed. Our flags caused much controversy through the protest. There was a few times the warrior flag was found flying upside down, and another time the Canadian flag was flying upside down. People were discouraged, and there was a few sad days around camp, but morale was not lost. The Creator sent us rain. For days on end, construction was unable to proceed in the clay. The ponds filled with enough water to attract geese. The flocks were hundreds that flew over the lodge during the ceremony. As if to say, we are here. Rainbows appeared day after day, and it seemed like one morning I was astonished to see a rainbow in the west sky. Dumpsite 41 camp remained in uproar for many, many weeks to come. People were upset for not having a voice. People upset because they did not have support needed from our First Nations. People were upset because they had no control. People upset because they could not be warriors. People upset because we were calling them warriors. People upset because we were using our medicines and our eagle feathers. And people upset because they had no voice in the leadership. And there was many personality conflicts. And people were upset that we didn't trust them. There were many reasons why we had these upsets in camp, and most were caused by fear. I was not moving from the gates. I spent 5 weeks sleeping in my truck. Shames came day after day to keep the roads in the early morning. Many in camp did not participate in gate blocking, but remained in camp and looked after the gates, coffees, errands, running, food, drumming, singing. Christian peacekeepers and other groups came to help provide expertise and help document incidents with police and industry. I wrote in the journal one day, it was 3 months had passed since I began the challenge of stopping Dumpsite 41. The calling of the inner soul has brought us to this point in history. Time to wake the nation, protect our resources. Men, women, children have been called of every nationality. The government agencies that approved this site have taken Mother Nature's gifts, and turned them into money greed. We have come together to change this pattern. May those in power step back and pay attention. We are strong, and the spirit of our sacred fire will keep us and Mother Nature safe. Thanks for all those who have listened to the calls. And the farmers in the community, citizens from all over the county, began to come and help blockading. They had a good crew on board until the judge ruled the police to issue an injunction, which was very scary for quite a few gate sitters. The sheriff read the court injunction, and Shelley offered him some water. Johnny and I made our intentions known by making ourselves comfortable in front of the gates. This was a scary time, but there was many who accompanied us did not let police intimidations stop them from their obligation to protect Mother Earth. A farmer came and put some bales of hay at the gates to help keep them closed, and few people left ready to take the charge and go to jail. The police were making their hits on the gates and taking unsuspected people from their homes as well. It was time to remain strong and focused on their duty and not to let the fight go. It was good that the surrounding community monitored the police movement because a raid was about to happen on the camp. We had about a 10-minute warning. I sent out a cell message saying we were being raided and we were fleeing to a cabin. I figured the police would catch the message and think that we had left. People fled from the gates in every direction, not wanting to get caught in the roadblock. Jen, Chrissy, Alita, Edie, and I hid in the bush until we heard helicopters. Then we took cover in the cornfield. We were trying to be quiet as we heard cars traveling around and police and army helicopters flying over us. Excuse me. Our texting on our cell phones seemed to be extremely loud for people that were hiding in the cornfield, and all we could do was giggle. One of our youth, Matt Bruce, stayed back to protect our sacred fire. When things died down, we snuck out the cornfield to find that they had removed the roadblock from gate 2, and they were now into the site. The episode left me wondering how many times in history Native women had to do this kind of fleeing. The Creator put us in that field for a reason. The whole experience only made us stronger. It was another hit on the county and police for going to extremes and spending taxpayers' money to intimidate and prey on helpless people. Our call-out worked. Camp and roads were full of supporters worried about our fate. The farmers in the Dumpsite 41 community were only a call away from our emergency response tree. Worked very well when tested. Tactics were increasing, as 11 or so had been arrested, and some were called in at this time. The first to go was an elderly couple. Ina received a phone call at home and said she was in the middle of baking butter tarts for the church and she would find Keith and come in a bit later. They did go to the police station on their own accord with the entourage of hundreds of people supporting close behind the Stop Site 41 flags flying proudly off their vehicles. The calls kept coming and 5 or 6 more were called, and John and Gavin had been picked up while doing other things on their own time. Danny was arrested on gate 3 in the evening when the numbers were low. Anne was arrested on her return home in the entourage for Keith and Ina Wood. Bob Ritchie went and gave himself up so he could be with his daughter, but they could not keep him because of his doctor's orders. Vicky gave herself up and signed bail conditions to stay away, as did John and Gavin when arrested. Danny and Anne were allowed to come to camp with no gate blocking. Vicky's conditions were changed to come for ceremonies. Danny, Vicky, and John were also charged with intimidation along with the understandable mischief charge. There were many who sat on the other side of the road, which was allowed by the courts. People of the South came from all walks of life: First Nation communities, groups, lodges, organizations, farms, cottagers, politicians, church groups, sport groups, unions, and support from the environmentalists around the world. Sacred fires were lit in First Nation communities across North America. The prayers were going out to save water with burning of medicines, water ceremonies, singing, drumming, and pipes lifted by our spiritual leaders across the continent. We had ceremony after ceremony, but none was so special as when Grandmother Jean Aquash came from Alberta to have pipe ceremony, requesting our ancient grandmothers come to help. I felt the spirits enter the lodge and establish in our lodge, and at that point I never felt closer to the sacred fire. Every morning waking to such power, and the fire kept me strong and focused on what I was there to do: save the water, change the line of industry and government, and protect what we have to get as one. I was arrested the next morning after the raid, being stupid chasing the Timmy's delivery down the road. I was ready to go by this time. The call was made. The wampum was on its way to the powers that be in the native community. I was arrested and charged with intimidation as well, and when asked why only natives received this intimidation charge, my response was, as far as I know, natives start intimidating the Crown the day we're born. Participation at the gates was dwindling for fears of being arrested. Many arrests were quiet, or my arrest was quiet. No cops, and the officers allowed me to finish my cigarette, offer my tobacco, my protection medicines to the creator, and let me take my Timmy's for the ride. Strange, but my jail stay was very relaxing. A place to catch up on some well-needed sleep. I woke the police telling me they had a lawyer on the phone, and I had lost my lawyer's number because it had wore off, and I forgot to put it on that morning. I usually kept it on my arm. So I was trying to talk the police into changing my conditions the same as Anne's so I could go back to camp, but they would not agree, and I was ordered to stay away from the camp. Dave and Bruce were on the station for my release, and we drove back to Bruce's where his wife and daughter dyed my hair and put on different clothes to wear. Dave bought me a hat and picked me up some new sunglasses, and I was now Willow Martin from Magnetowan. And even people in the camp did not recognize me until I spoke, smiled, and walked. I was having fun being Willow Martin for a few days when something told me to get out of camp. I had an overwhelming feeling of disaster. So I packed up quite quickly and snuck out of camp. Dave Wabakanoji drove me home and convinced me to wait for the court proceedings before making any calls for help. I called my friend and canceled the wampum, which was already in Montreal. The next day I was sitting with my peers at the council meeting when I realized how much I needed to be at camp. The fire and the medicines were strong, and I relied on the creator for my power. Okay, I needed to be at the camp, no matter what the consequence. I went home and started writing a letter to the courts and the media, and I told them I was going back to camp. I was so relieved to have written this letter. I like to be honest before coming with my feelings and intentions, and I needed to be me. Not being me at the sight left me longing for a closer relationship I had with fire. Will Martin was gone. Thank you. And I was back being Beth. Feeling good and complete. We had a good group of people protecting what little natives remained. A few days had passed with varied attempts made by Michael Smith and Andrea, who chained themselves to the gate 2 and police arrested them. I felt helpless this day. Our people were hauled away from the gates. Little Jen, Rick, Patricia, Bruce, Dave were all taken that day. I was standing on the road, shouting on the phone to the government. I think I was actually threatening them. And it was our right to protect the water. An order to arrest had come in the middle of what Wabakanoji thought to be negotiations with police and government. It was sad days back watching, not being able to stand with my brothers and sisters. I was not in practice test. I didn't want to do anything I was not doing myself. I did others follow. they were on their own out there for the first time, I was actually scared, not for me, but for my fellow protesters. I could not protect and advise, and it took a toll from my spirit. I was sitting in the lodge with the stick of fire, doing the only thing I could do, offered my medicines and prayed. 5 weeks spent on the gates taught me a lot about human nature and loyalty. People will put themselves up for the greater good, come in many different packages. Oh my God. We are grateful to have so many good people standing at the gates. Police were an ongoing concern since the get-go. The first to come speak with us were the Aboriginal Relations Team, which was formed after the April Wash inquiry. These officers dressed in plain clothes and came into camp offering gifts of coffee and donuts. They made sure they penetrated camp, made friends with all they met. Hugs from Heidi were not uncommon as she worked through the crowds. I was leery on their intentions and asked the camp to refrain from giving names and information. They were being cordial and quite welcoming until we realized they were not mediating fairly and just there to collect information. There were phone calls made late at night to our homes and to the camp and asking questions like who owned the BMW in front of the camp and asking if they were causing problems, thinking they came from the other side. Lois and Art came to the camp. Lois and Art came to the camp and we were, okay, I missed the sentence, sorry. The calls were intimidating. They were referring to crop damages, accidents, lawsuits, and insurance. Art and Lois had got a call and they came to the camp. We reassured them that the police were intimidating them not to listen. They wanted to go and they wanted us gone and were using any way they could to get us off the land. The firekeepers bought me a phone one time and it was Heidi asking questions. I did not like answering her questions. And we asked the police, well, I was shocked that she had asked some questions, and from then on we asked the police not to come around. We had a meeting and decided to, we told the police and asked them that we did not want them on the campground anymore, and we did not want to deal with Heidi, and there was a ban on weapons in the camp to keep them out. Dealing with the police was a daily occurrence, and we negotiated on details and conditions of every occurrence. The police had a surveillance unit that cruised the side roads, gathering license plate numbers and sat across from the gates and camp, constantly collecting information. We put a stop to filming in the camp by using tarps stringing across the trees and posts that give us added protection for our guests and those that were yet arrested. There were many circumstances where negotiations were needed during the protest. I was away from time to time and did most of the things on the phone when I was not there. Shelley covered the events, socials and ceremonies, and did well organizing camp recycling. Vicky was a spokesperson with the media and participated with the water ceremonies. Lita was our youth leader and focused on youth morale. Pauline left camp around the time of the blockade with intentions of coming back, but less than remember in the meantime. Don't think, don't speak, so just do. I was on autopilot. I was living moment to moment for 161 days, making decisions on behalf of the camp, and most of the time shutting out the negativity from fellow protesters. Much was negative in camp, and I stayed at the gates sometimes just to keep my distance from others who were under the impression we should discontinue the gate blocking. There were also firekeeper problems, as some men thought the women weren't respecting them, and they moved the teepee to gate 2, where they called it the men's camp. Things were getting out of hand in camp, and a lot of bickering and control problems. The head firekeepers came and left, and there was always someone preaching their ways and trying to change things in camp. I was under the impression that people will do what they can, and this pretty much worked out. When someone would fall, there was always someone to come up and pick up and carry on. The creator did an excellent job, sending who was needed, and I never worried and let fate take its place. I had faith that everyone was there for a reason, and they knew what it was. The ceremonies, events, and potluck suppers were great. Even though we had upsets and chaos on the roads and in our nation, we are still all working as one for a common cause. You cannot put 30 or more people in a hayfield and expect everyone to get along. We all had different teachings, different leaders, different elders, different beliefs, and we all knew one thing. We were there focusing on the water. The camp was looked after by the ones who camped, and it was hard taking advice from those that were looking in and not even seeing. John Boschkosh came to speak with us at Dump Site 41 and claimed that we had started the seventh fire prophecy from the Michonne's book, Eddie Benton Benet. Jack, a local citizen, spoke up at a potluck dinner and stated, "We are all Indians now. We are all standing against the government." I believe he had it right. Time to stand shoulder to shoulder and be one. Unity does prevail. Miigwech.